They didn't reject you because you weren't enough. They rejected you because you were too much truth, too much depth, too much everything they couldn't handle. But here's what nobody tells you. That rejection didn't just hurt you. It trained you. It conditioned your nervous system to accept control disguised as love. If you've ever found yourself accepting crumbs from someone who should be offering you a feast, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments what's the hardest boundary you've had to set. I read every single one, and your courage might be exactly what someone else needs to see today. Listen carefully. When rejection happens early and often, it doesn't just wound you, it programs you. Attachment theorist John Bowlby discovered that our earliest experiences of connection create internal blueprints for love. If those blueprints were drawn by hands that withheld affection, criticized your needs, or disappeared when you needed them most, your nervous system learned a dangerous lesson. Love requires you to shrink. You didn't choose to become someone who accepts less. You were conditioned for it. Every time someone important to you pulled away when you expressed a need, your brain logged it as evidence. Need equals abandonment. Authentic self equals rejection. So you learned to negotiate your worth down before anyone else could do it for you. Your childhood rejection didn't happen in isolation. It happened in your most formative years, when your brain was literally being wired for connection. Bowlby called this your internal working model of attachment. If the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally made that love feel conditional, your brain created a survival strategy. Become whatever keeps them close. This conditioning runs deeper than you think. Your nervous system doesn't just remember the big rejections, the parent who left, the partner who betrayed you. It remembers every micro-rejection, every time your excitement was met with indifference, every time your pain was minimized, every time your joy was too much for someone else to handle. Each micro-rejection was a small injection of the same poison. You are too much, and too much drives people away. So your system learned to dial it down. Dial down your emotions, dial down your needs, dial down your very existence until you became a manageable version of yourself. But here's the twisted part. Even this smaller version of you wasn't small enough. Because people who reject authentic connection don't want less of you. They want none of you. They want a projection, a mirror, an echo of their own emptiness. This is where emotional abuse gets its foothold. You walk into adult relationships already convinced that asking for more will drive people away. You've been pre-trained to apologize for your needs, to minimize your pain, to celebrate the bare minimum as if it were a gift from the gods. You learned that love was something you had to earn through perfect behavior. That connection was something you had to maintain through constant vigilance. That being chosen was a privilege that could be revoked at any moment if you stepped out of line. But here's where it gets insidious. That early rejection didn't just teach you to expect less. It taught you to be grateful for scraps. When someone finally shows up and offers you 10% of what you deserve, it feels like abundance compared to the zero you've been getting. You call it love. They call it control. The narcissist in your life doesn't have to work hard to convince you that you're too much. You already believe it. They don't have to teach you that love is conditional. You graduated from that school with honors. They just have to show up and activate patterns that were carved into your nervous system before you even knew what love was supposed to feel like. They recognize the signs immediately. The way you light up when they give you attention, like you've been starving for it. The way you apologize before you've even done anything wrong. The way you make excuses for their behavior before they even ask you to. You've been pre-programmed to accept their reality over your own. To question your perceptions before you question their actions. To blame yourself for their inability to love you properly. This is how rejection becomes the perfect grooming tool for toxic relationships. Your abandonment wounds become their playground. Your fear of being left becomes their leverage. Your desperate need for connection becomes their control mechanism. You learned early that conflict meant disconnection. So now you avoid it at all costs, even when avoiding it costs you your soul. You learned that having needs made people leave. So now you pretend you don't have any, even when that pretense is slowly killing you from the inside. You learned that your emotions were too big, too messy, too inconvenient for other people. So now you swallow them down, stuff them away, pretend they don't exist, until they explode in ways that make you feel crazy. The person controlling you right now didn't create these patterns. They just recognized them. They saw someone who had been trained to accept less and thought, perfect, this is exactly what I've been looking for. They saw someone who would rather lose themselves than lose the relationship. Someone who would rather be wrong than be alone. Someone who had been conditioned to believe that any love, even toxic love, was better than no love at all. Here's what Bowlby understood that most people miss. These patterns aren't personality flaws, they're survival adaptations. Your younger self looked around and said, if being myself drives people away, I'll become whatever keeps them close. It was brilliant. It kept you connected to people who couldn't handle your full humanity. Your attachment system was designed to keep you alive, not to keep you happy. It was designed to maintain connection at any cost, because for a child, disconnection equals death. Your brain didn't distinguish between healthy and unhealthy connection. It just knew that connection was survival. But that same strategy is now keeping you trapped in relationships that require you to disappear. The very mechanism that once protected you is now destroying you. And here's the cruel irony. The more you try to avoid rejection by accepting control, the more you guarantee your own abandonment. Because when you abandon yourself to keep someone else, you become someone they can't actually love. You become a projection of their needs rather than a person with your own. You become an empty vessel for their expectations, a blank canvas for their projections, a mirror for their ego. But you stop being you, and deep down they know it. They know they're not loving a person. They're loving a performance. This creates a cycle that never ends. They push for more control because they sense the inauthenticity. You give more control because you sense their dissatisfaction. But the more control you give, the less authentic you become. The less authentic you become, the more they sense something is missing. They're not missing you because you're not there. You've disappeared behind a mask of compliance, people-pleasing, and terror of abandonment. The person who truly loves you won't need you to be smaller. They won't require you to edit your emotions, apologize for your needs, or prove your worth through your availability. Real love doesn't ask you to shrink. It invites you to expand. It doesn't control. It liberates. Real love sees your bigness and says, finally, someone who matches my depth. It sees your needs and says, let me show you what meeting them looks like. It sees your emotions and says, thank you for trusting me with your truth. Real love doesn't try to fix you, change you, or improve you. It doesn't see you as a project or a possibility. It sees you as you are and says, this is what I've been waiting for. But here's the part that might hurt. You can't heal this by finding the right person. You heal it by becoming the person who wouldn't accept the wrong one. You heal it by refusing to mistake someone's inability to love you properly for evidence of your unworthiness. You heal it by understanding that rejection says nothing about you and everything about their capacity, their emotional bandwidth, their ability to handle depth, authenticity, and real intimacy. That first rejection that started it all, it wasn't a verdict on your value. It was information about their capacity. The parent who couldn't handle your emotions wasn't telling you that your emotions were wrong. They were showing you the limits of their emotional intelligence. The partner who left when you asked for more wasn't proving you were too needy. They were demonstrating their inability to meet adult needs in an adult relationship. The friend who disappeared when you set a boundary wasn't showing you that boundaries are wrong. They were revealing their addiction to your compliance. Every person who rejected you for being too much was actually telling you they were too little. Too little depth to match yours. Too little courage to handle your truth. Too little capacity to hold space for your full humanity. You were never the problem. You were just surrounded by people who couldn't handle the solution you represented, your depth in their shallow world, your authenticity in their performance, your growth in their stagnation, your truth in their lies. Every time you were rejected for being yourself, the message wasn't change who you are. The message was find people who can handle who you are. But instead, you learned to become who they could handle. You learned to make yourself palatable to people with no appetite for real intimacy. You learned to water yourself down for people who were dying of thirst for something real, but too afraid to drink. You learn to apologize for your existence instead of celebrating it, to hide your light instead of letting it shine, to make yourself smaller instead of demanding that the world make room for your bigness. Stop trying to convince people to choose you who have already shown you they won't. Stop auditioning for love with people who've made it clear the part isn't yours. Stop accepting control disguised as affection from people who mistake your hunger for connection as an opportunity to feed you scraps. Stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Stop defending your needs to people who see them as inconveniences. Stop justifying your emotions to people who would rather you not have any. The rejection that conditioned you to accept control was never about you. It was about them, their limitations, their fears, their inability to love without conditions, to connect without control, to stay without guarantees. It was about their terror of real intimacy, their addiction to surface-level connection, their need to keep everything and everyone small enough to manage, predictable enough to control, safe enough to handle. And the moment you truly understand that, not just intellectually, but in your bones, in your nervous system, in the deepest parts of your being, is the moment you become unavailable for relationships that require you to become unavailable to yourself. You don't need to be chosen by someone who can't see your worth. You need to choose yourself so completely that their blindness becomes irrelevant. You need to love yourself so fiercely that their rejection feels like protection rather than punishment. You need to understand that being rejected by the wrong person is actually the universe saving you from a life of pretending to be someone you're not. The person meant for you won't condition you to accept less. They'll inspire you to become more. Not more of what they want, but more of who you already are. They'll see your intensity and call it passion. They'll see your sensitivity and call it strength. They'll see your needs and call them roadmaps to deeper connection. Stop accepting control. Start demanding love, the real kind. The kind that sees all of you and stays. The kind that asks for your truth, not your performance. The kind that would rather lose the relationship than lose you.